Now, not all dragons are fierce, or even fierce-sounding. Listen to this little song about a very reluctant dragon. Now, one fine day, while on my way to Ipswich by the sea, I met a rather charming chap who asked me into tea. Now, it seems he was a dragon. You know, the kind with wings. Oh, yes, teeth and tails and claws and scales and all those dragon-like details. Now, I admit, I jumped a bit when he began to sing. I'm the reluctant dragon, what ho, quite so. The very reluctant dragon, oh very, very, don't you know? They call me the timid dragon, what rot, I'm not. When others fight, I run away. It's just because I'm built that way. I'm to be queen of the May today. Whoops, I'm reluctant.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Disney Reel to Reel, a deep, deep, deep delve into the Disney animated canon. I am Wyatt, and Rayleigh is absent this week, and that's kind of a good thing because it took me so much restraint not to open this with a mid-Atlantic accent. Because, God, it was so tempting. But joining me today instead are the husband and wife duo behind the podcast When You Wish Upon a Podcast, Christina and Joey. Guys, welcome to Disney Reel to Reel.
Hey.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, no problem. So I like to ask my guests some personal Disney questions before we get into our main discussions. And the first two that I'd like to ask are, what got you two into Disney?
Go for it, babe.
Oh man. Well, I grew up around Disney. My first language was Spanish. And so growing up watching all of these Disney movies, pretty much like all the Disney princess movies, like Pocahontas, Little Mermaid, all of those, I kind of learned English. So it was not only like going to Disneyland every year with my family, so like the nostalgia around it, but also like it helped me growing up. And I guess that's why even now in my 30s, I'm like, I love Disney. It's just a part of my life. It's like ingrained into me. I love it so much. And so Joey, I guess he can talk about his love for, Star Wars and all of that stuff. And then we kind of just became Disney adults that way.
Yeah, and for me it was pretty much The Lion King. So when I was little, everything that I would see from Disney was like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and things like that, like princesses stuff. And then my godfather, he's like, "Oh, you want to go to the movies?" And I was like, "Oh, sure. What are we gonna watch?" And it's like, "Well, there's a movie called The Lion King that people keep talking about." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then we went to go see it. That was my first movie that I ever saw in theaters. And then it's to this day still my favorite animated Disney movie. So ever since then, I've just been a fan of Disney, and that's pretty much for me personally what got me into it. And then now, of course, now that it's acquired Marvel and Star Wars, now I'm like so happy. So yeah, that's pretty much what got me into Disney itself.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It's great that they now own everything.
Everything.
yeah. I mean, pretty much, and even I don't know if you've seen the the on-set photos of the new Deadpool movie that's coming out. But in the background, you see like the Fox, the old 20th Century Fox,
logo.
Like logo. So
and
even
it's like,
that.
Oh yeah, that's Disney now.
Yeah. So.
All right. And I guess I can go ahead and ask, what were the first Disney movies that you guys saw as kids?
Oh well, like I mentioned, my first one was The Lion King.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my first one. Still my favorite. Yeah, it's my initial first one.
I'm pretty sure the first Disney movie that I saw in theaters was Pocahontas. And my cousins, they were around the same age, and I remember we all were pretending we were Pocahontas for like the longest time. So that I think that was like the first, and then all of these other princess movies. I guess my parents saw how much I love Pocahontas, so they started getting me all of these other ones. I remember watching Snow White so many times, pretending to be her running into the forest. But yeah.
Honestly, same.
Yeah. Like I was scared, but it was also like my favorite thing at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Disney princesses, I think that's my thing. And a Goofy movie is I love it so much. It brings back awesome memories.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
All right.
I was gonna say,
sorry.
if you don't mind me asking, what was your favorite? Or what was your first Disney movie?
I want to say it's like there's 3 movies that I remember watching around the same time, but I can't remember like the exact one.
Mm-hmm.
It was between Snow White, Fantasia 2000, and Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, okay.
Interesting, because all those are kind of, well, besides Lilo and Stitch and Fantasia 2000, Snow White is like the farthest one from them.
Mm-hmm.
So then around that time, like before then, you hadn't seen anything Disney.
No, I had. It was just things like their sing along song tapes and stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like not like full movies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's even funnier because I was thinking about this question with my mother and my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems that we love movies that were like it goes chronologically backwards the further you like the more recent you get in our timeline,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because like my grandmother, her favorite is Mary Poppins,
Okay.
and she obviously would have been around when that movie came out,
Mm-hmm.
so she has like the closest attachment to it. And then my mother's favorite is Dumbo.
Oh, okay.
And I think I think it helped her in her having an Aspie son, point at me, and accepting him over like how other people react to like neurodivergent people and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's the awesome thing about Disney too, is that everyone has that movie that they can relate to in a much deeper way than it just being like, oh, it's cute and it's has a catchy song to it. It's like there's a movie for everybody that it just means a lot more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
okay.
my favorite is Snow White. So,
And it is a amazing movie. I love that movie. If you've listened to our first episode on our podcast, that's the movie we cover, and we just like fell in love with that movie. It's almost like a perfect animated movie. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
I know.
like that one. I've personally never seen it. Like you mentioned, the sing-alongs. I've only seen like because those sing-alongs, they have the
Like hi-ho.
yeah, they have like that scene. That's the only thing I remember from Snow White, and seeing like the statues or whatever at the parks and the and in the poster. But I before this podcast, I've never actually seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I seen it, I can't remember if we've gone to the parks afterwards, but now I have like a bigger appreciation for like the well, the wishing well and
just
everything.
the characters
Yeah.
in general. Like I used to be like, well, I think my least favorite is Snow White as a princess, but now she's one of my favorites for sure.
Like even though I hadn't seen the movie before, she was always my favorite Disney princess. Just because
really?
I don't know. I guess it's her like the perky, like high pitched voice, kind of like a Betty Boop kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. To me, that's always been like, oh, I like her. Mm-hmm.
She has that characteristic that sets her apart from a lot of Disney princesses. So yeah.
And then pretty much anything after her there's like inspirations. You know, like since she was the first one, any princess after her, it's you know, like
It's like inspired by
yeah.
Snow White.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Pretty much any princess that talks to animals ever.
Yes.
There it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that actually, I think a perfect segue into our discussion on The Reluctant Dragon would be that you guys have actually covered the first 5 Disney animated films on your show.
Mm-hmm.
Would you care to share your ratings for those?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure for Snow White, we each rated that one a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, that one for sure was a 10.
It just like started off like amazing. We were like, it's gonna just be uphill from here.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
Right.
Yeah. Because after that, what was it?
After that, we had Pinocchio.
After that, we had Pinocchio.
I think I rated it like a 6 or 7 out of 10, only because I'm like, wow, this is very dark.
Yeah.
In contrast to Snow White, which was just like magical and beautiful, and we have the evil queen, but you know, there's all that fun and, you know, comedy throughout. But then Pinocchio is just much more serious. I don't remember what you rated it, Joe.
I believe I rated that one a 7 too.
Yeah.
Because even though it was, you know, the animation was really good and everything, and it's just coming off Snow White, yeah, the whole Pleasure Island segment, and then as they're going, like, I don't know if people like, I guess, caught this part where they're going to the island, and then, you know, they have kids on the little trolley or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But then they're being pulled by donkeys.
Yeah.
So then it's like, oh, like it's like a foreshadowing. Yeah, and then I was like, oh,
absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's, I don't know. I guess Snow White made me feel, when it was over, it made me feel like okay,
Aww.
yeah. Oh, that was a good. that was a good movie.
After Pinocchio,
I can get up the next morning.
Yeah. This one made me feel like, oh man, I don't know, like I want to have kids, but now I'm scared.
After that, what was after that? Fantasia.
Oh god.
Which, to be honest, was not our favorite and was difficult to watch, as maybe it's because we don't have any type of attachment to the film, but I think I gave this one like a 3 or 4 out of 10. Yeah, it was just a little bit more difficult. I might have to rewatch it just, you know, to gain a little bit more appreciation for it. And then after that, we had Dumbo, of course. Great short film. I absolutely love the story with Mama Jumbo and her baby. It's just so heartwarming. I love it. I think I probably gave that one like an average score of 6 or 7 out of 10 as well.
Yeah, no, for Fantasia, again, I saw the Sorcerer's Apprentice on those sing-alongs, but
was it on there?
I believe it. I believe it was on there. But it was because I remember seeing like the the brooms and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. It was either on there or on one, like, you know how like Disney had like those, like they released just like clip like shorts from the different movies. But I don't remember ever watching anything else, like the live segments. Even the Night on Bald Mountain, like I remember seeing that one. I've seen the image, but I remember seeing that whole segment. But yeah, when I saw Fantasia, I mean, there was things, and I'm sure you're aware of the problematic segments in that movie. But when it kept cutting back to the live orchestra and stuff, I guess for me it didn't really like flow, because they would, like, you would watch something and they would pause and then they would explain to you what you were gonna watch, and you would watch it. So for me, I think I gave that one like I think it was like a 6. But then we go back to just fully animated with Dumbo, and I've always known it to be like, oh, it's like a sad movie. Like if you know something about Dumbo, even if you've never seen the movie, you know that he gets separated from his mom. So when you just see that scene without context, it's like, oh, that's
It's
sad.
devastating.
But when you see it with context, like the whole build up that
I was sobbing.
yeah.
Yes.
I had seen the movie before, but I was
I
still
watched
sobbing.
a little chunk of it earlier today, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this
Oh.
10 seconds has wrecked me."
Yes.
Yeah, because if you know it, right? Like if somebody has never seen the movie and you show them the clip, they might feel something like, oh, it's sad, like it's his mom. But if you're like, no, you don't get it. She wanted him. She didn't think she was gonna get him because it was late. They ridiculed him, but she still accepted him because that's her baby. She tried to do everything to protect him from people making fun of him, and because of that, she got locked up. And then you cut to, oh, they can't be together. And then with context,
More
you're like, no.
tragic.
Yeah. So that one for me was, I think it was like an 8.
Yeah.
Like a high 8, yeah.
Yeah. After that, what do we have? We have, why are we forgetting?
No, well, isn't it, well, we're just talking about the animated, right?
Yeah, then we have Bambi.
Bambi.
Yeah, we have Bambi.
Yeah.
I remember watching this when I was little, and I guess I just didn't sit down and watch it. It was almost new to me, and the whole time I was scared of when the inevitable tragic scene happens. So the whole time my hands were all sweaty, and I'm like, I know it's gonna come soon enough. Yeah. So I think that one I did give it like a maybe average score of 7 as well. And then from there we jump into the packaged films, which are Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros. And yeah, those I find these movies really interesting. I don't think I would have before our podcast, but I learned a lot from Saludos Amigos. I really enjoyed that film. I think I gave it maybe like a 8 out of 10. I really loved the part specifically in Brazil. I think that's a really underrated movie that more people should see. And I know there are some that say there are problematic parts to it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that throughout early Disney films, but it is really great in other ways. Again, the Brazil part just stands out to me so much more than Three Caballeros in all, you know. And those
Saludos is definitely a lot more tame.
Yeah. Those I think I gave like a 7 or 8 out of 10. We've been kind of sitting there for a while, so we're excited to get into these other films in the future that we also are not super familiar with, like Melody Time and Make My Music and all of those. So that's kind of the era we're jumping into on our podcast.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I mainly the reason why I brought that up is because you guys, I love Fantasia.
It's a great movie.
I'm not.
We were kidding.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because I had somebody on an episode about Snow White a couple weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh, I listened to one of your earlier episodes, and you were like going off, doing so much research, sharing so much valuable information." She was like, "Oh my god, he's gonna kill me for making jokes about Snow White, and like I'm gonna get caught." I'm like, no, I'm not that high maintenance. But yeah, I really feel like Walt Disney is my conservative soul sister from another planet or something, you know, like there's something about like I love the like, how do I put this? Like I don't want to spend too much time on this because we'll go off topic, but there's just something about how like Fantasia is a really audacious movie, and a lot of people then and now have acknowledged that, especially because it's a freaking Disney movie. But at the same time, I'm like, yes, but who else was doing this kind of thing?
That's
somebody
very
needed to
true.
give somebody needed to give the industry like a shot in the arm, and maybe it happened too quickly, but I still like give him mad props for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
It was definitely innovative, and I think Walt Disney deserves a lot of credit for stepping outside of the box with that film.
Yeah.
No, and there's and there's something to say about um I feel like Fantasia is that movie that, like, even if you haven't seen it, like for example, like I didn't see the movie like in full length before this podcast, but I always knew the image of Mickey with the sorcerer's hat, and then like with the brooms and like lifting up the water.
Yeah,
So
or Chernabog. You knew of that villain, but you're like, it's from Fantasia, but like I have no idea. That's how I was too.
Yeah, so I appreciate it for that. It's, even though it's not my favorite,
it's still iconic.
It's still, I mean, like, hey, like it's still, I'm pretty sure it's most people's favorites because it's for all the significance it has and stuff. And like you said, doing something that wasn't done before, especially with that, like Mickey coming in, kind of like midway, like into the live action. I thought that was gonna be like they were gonna keep going with that, but then they kind of, like in future films they expanded on that. But yeah, there's something to be said about Fantasia, and what it did, and like you said, like being like the shot in the arm that it needed at the time. So yeah, like, hey, it's your favorite movie, and that's what we like. We like to hear people going like, you know what, you give it a 5, but it's a 10.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's not my favorite, but like, I'm just over here being like, I could go without The Rite of Spring. Everything else is great. You guys are probably like, we could do with probably like 5 of these segments.
Yeah.
No. Well, ironically, I guess like I actually, my favorite segment is probably people's like overlooked segment. Maybe it's the sound one.
The soundtrack.
The soundtrack. Yeah, that's my favorite one, because he goes, "Oh, give me the drums, or give me the flute," and then it's just, you see like the different colors and the vibrations, and then how, like, the whole time I'm just thinking like John Williams. I'm thinking like how, I can hear like a tune and I think of Star Wars right away. So how music is that important to film. So then to me that was my favorite part. And then for most people might be like, oh, so it wasn't like Mickey, it wasn't like anything animated, it was just, like no characters, just vibrations. And I was like, yeah, that's
totally
my favorite. Yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah.
So yeah, otherwise, bringing all those up just refers to The Reluctant Dragon, 1941. Basically, it answers a primary question that hundreds of thousands of people had at the time that these movies were being made, which was, how do you do those things? And Disney, prior to the production of this film, had kind of teeter-tottered around the explanation of the production of their movies in the 1930s. Although earlier on, it was a funny thing because people would ask, like, I'm sorry. It's mid-afternoon. I need to get it together. They would ask things like, where is Mickey Mouse? Where can we meet Mickey Mouse? And they were like in the proximity of the Disney studios in Silver Lake, California. And the way that the studio got around it back in the day was by putting this miniature little car right next to their main entrances that was like proportioned to Mickey and Minnie Mouse. And so they would use this excuse to be like, well, they're inside working on a new picture right now, but we can give you a signed autograph card or something.
Oh, wow.
So that's how they handled that back then. And then when Snow White was coming out, they produced this mini documentary short to put in theaters before the film was shown, called How Walt Disney Cartoons Are Made. And it ran for about 8 minutes. It was basically half newsreel footage from the premiere of Snow White, and then pieces from a short that they had produced for their distributors from RKO Radio Pictures, showing all the various animators and musicians and story people at work. But I guess they were like, you know what? we've been asked too many goddamn times. Let's make a full feature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they were like, let's make the Reluctant Dragon. So I guess to kick things off, Christina, did you bring any general stats?
Yeah. So usually on our podcast, the first thing we ask is, have we seen this movie before the episode? So I will answer first, I guess. And no, I had never seen this before. I had only heard of it thanks to Disney Reel to Reel. Yeah, so I saw you post about it and I was like, huh, what is this? And then I saw it pop up on Disney Plus and was like, interesting. But I had never seen it before. So I was excited to get into it. But how about you, Joey? Had you seen it before the podcast?
No, and like the same thing. When Christina had told me about the Reluctant Dragon, because she had spoken to you about it, and then she showed me that it was on Disney Plus. I was like, "What is this?" I was like, "I've never heard about this." And then you see like the animated poster, right? And then so we'll get into it. How I was like, "Wait, what's happening?" But yeah, no, and like me personally, I've never even heard of the movie until before you mentioned it.
How about you, Wyatt?
So I'm kind of gonna show off my diehard Disney fan.
We love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched this movie when I was, I want to say, maybe 14 years old.
Okay.
Because even then, I was such a freaking nerd when it came to Disney history and movies and stuff. So I was like, I gotta know everything and anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially about this period, because the Golden Age, which involves those 5 movies, it's actually my favorite era of Disney animation as well. And we haven't gotten to that in our rankings yet, but all but one movie is going to be in the top tier. So, but yeah, I was also kind of, I don't want to say shook by it when I saw it the first time, but I was just sort of like, what is all of this? I can't like comprehend what's going on screen. But now, as I've gotten older and understand how the studio worked back in those days, I'm like, okay, now I have a better understanding of how they do things, and it's easier for me to understand unlike those people back in the 1930s.
Yeah.
But to be fair, most of the information they would have got was from either hearsay or print, so I guess
Yeah.
I'll be compassionate. But yeah, and ever since, it's not exactly a top tier movie for me, but it's one that I like to pop in every now and then just to refresh myself on how they did things and stuff, especially for the podcast when I have to pull up research all the time. It's a good refresher. And it's funny how it's actually more accurate than you would think in most places, but we'll get into that as we go along.
Yeah.
So did you bring any info like about the release or its box office earnings or?
Yeah. So the movie came out, as you know, it was released in June 20th of 1941, and the budget for it was actually $600,000, and it only made $400,000 in returns in its initial box office.
So not,
Yeah.
not
So
too
it
successful.
Yeah.
But
So
it kind of it almost like kept with the trend of what occurred after that. So
yeah, I guess it was like, according to it was considered a box office failure. But I guess like you were saying, it was kind of like how you were saying you were shook when you saw it.
Yes.
When I first saw it, I was I thought I was going into just a fully like animated movie.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I was expecting it to be fully animated, but pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and especially because on Disney Plus, they have like it's like I guess like a trailer, it's like a sneak peek of the movie. And it's like a minute. But when you play it, it's just the Reluctant Dragon segment. So then I was thinking, oh, cool. Like, well, I'll just pause it because we're just gonna watch the movie. But then it wasn't just that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Then they were like, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, and I was just like, I was thrown off a little bit, but like pleasantly surprised though.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, we can also share that this movie features performances by Robert Benchley, Buddy
Mhm.
Pepper, Francis Gifford,
Clarence
and
Nash.
various. Oh yes, Clarence Nash. Oh
Yeah.
my God,
Donald,
Clarence.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's the best. Also Florence Gill and
Mhm.
numerous plethora of Disney staff members, pre-strike.
Yeah.
Like we'll get into that, but that was one of my favorite things that you just see, people just kind of like going about their day. And something that I really liked was that if you just look at the background, you just see people just working.
Mhm.
So for all
Yeah.
for all we know, and it's probably true when they were filming, the background it wasn't like staged. It was just okay. We're gonna film these 4 or 5 people, like they're gonna be the actors or just like the main thing on screen. But the background, for all we know, they were just working.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that part was pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess if y'all are down, we can start going through the basic plot rundown.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So I guess it'd probably be best to start off with the disclaimer that they put in the opening credits,
Oh yes.
Yeah,
which is the
Mm-hmm.
the one about this is not a. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me right now.
Let me see. I think I have it here.
Oh yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It only runs for like 10 seconds real quick and then it
I
goes
know
off.
it's hard to pause and read the whole thing, but
Yeah.
it does say this program. Unfortunately, we're familiar with this from a lot of films we watched already, but it says this program includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of peoples or cultures. These stereotypes were wrong then and are wrong now. Rather than remove this content, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together. And then it includes a link to disney.com/stories matter, where they kind of talk about how they are working to create more inclusive content and how they're going back into past films and kind of trying to I guess identify the issues with them and include these disclaimers with help of different organizations that they work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I'm happy to say that a lot of the problematic things in this movie,
Mhm.
I do have quite a bit of information about. So we'll definitely devote some time to those as we discuss.
All right, good.
But I was also referring to the disclaimer that they put at the beginning of the opening credits, which was said, "This picture is made in answer to the many requests to show the backstage life of animated cartoons. P.S. Any resemblance to a regular motion picture is purely coincidental."
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, like if you were to watch just the sneak peek, right? It's just showing you the animated segment. So then technically, I went in thinking that was just going to be the movie. So then when I saw that disclaimer in the at the beginning, I was like, well, I mean, it's kind of like a little joke because it is you are seeing animated segments. But yeah, I thought that was funny too.
Yeah.
Well, and especially because, like, coming off of Fantasia,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, like the critics and most audiences weren't really like down to watch a Disney movie because of how pretentious they thought Fantasia was.
Mhm.
But this is like a little playful jab to being like, like, okay, like we can take ourselves down a peg, like we're cool guys. And then from there we move on to the opening scene with Nana Bryant.
Mhm.
She's reading a copy of Kenneth Graham's The Reluctant Dragon to a very disinterested Robert Benchley.
Yeah, and he's just Initially, okay. Have you seen Billy Madison?
No, I have not.
No? Okay. So initially I got that vibe because he was like Robert is like in the pool, right? And he's like
Mhm.
playing with his little gun or something.
He's
And
like
Yeah.
duck hunting.
yeah. And then she's like reading him this book. And again, I've never seen the movie, so I thought it was like I thought it was like a man child kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
it was his mom at first.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it just seemed that way, but he just seemed like disinterested, like a child is disinterested in whatever his mom is trying to tell him. So it was a interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much like a sitcom
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. So then she's like just reading him the book, right? And then she goes, you know what? How come you don't sell it to Disney or sell this story to Disney? And then I was like, you could just do that. I was like, you could just go. You could just go like, hey, oh, you know what? Yeah, I got time. Let's go.
Don't need an appointment
Well,
or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, it's like, is he able to do that because because Robert Benchley in real life, he was a popular actor, humorist,
yeah.
and newspaper columnist for the New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, it's like, can he do that because of his status? Or are we just saying any regular Joe off the street can come off and tell Mr. Disney, hey, I got a story for you?
Right.
Yeah, well, that's the thing because yeah, like he was all those things, right? Like he was part of I believe it's called the Algonquin Roundtable.
Yes.
Yeah. So but in the movie, like his status, I guess. I mean, they seem to live in a nice house, but his status is never mentioned.
I guess as first time watchers, we were a little bit confused since we didn't know too much about Robert Benchley. So I guess for new audiences, it might be a little bit confusing. But yeah, at the time, I guess maybe it was a little bit more justified, and people are like, yeah, he should definitely go in and talk to Walt
that's
about
my
it.
boy.
Yeah.
I guess, right? It's like if today we see a celebrity and then they're in the movie and then someone tells them, oh, go pitch this to Bob Iger, and then we would just buy it because we know that they're famous.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I didn't know anything about him, so yeah, it was like I was thinking what you said, that oh, he's just a guy that you could just go, and then they just the next scene is just them driving off.
Yeah. So does this mean that if this was made in the 2000s, then it would be Kevin James and Leah Remini in those roles?
I guess that would be, because I guess that would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense. Because like it's funny that you mentioned Kevin James because well, you know how like he's tied with Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler did Billy Madison, so I guess it would work out.
It's all connected.
But yeah, that's pretty much how it's like. It just starts off like, okay, let's just go do this, and then they just go. Yeah. They just go to the studio.
Little fact before we head over to the studio.
Mm-hmm.
The live action sequences were filmed from the 9th of October, 1940 to the 2nd of November of that same year. Mm-hmm. And Benchley was actually the only member of the team who seemed dissatisfied with the production. In a letter to his wife, dated 3rd November 1940, he wrote, quote, I have to go over tomorrow and Tuesday to make some pickup shots and pose for publicity stills. But the picture is in the bag and 3 days under schedule. I don't know yet what it will be like. I know I have had to do a lot of stuff I didn't like personally, and don't think I want to keep on in the cartoon business. Although Disney wants to make another picture with me to use his new sound equipment, which I believe to be Fantasound. They play too comical in cartoons. The enclosed snaps will give you an idea of what I mean. The big laugh in this sequence is when the bottom drops out of the inflatable raft and I disappear into the water. Get it? Anyway, I lost about 10 pounds doing it, so that is something, unquote.
Oh, man.
Yeah, because I was going to say, when he falls in, it's like, that shot, it's like cut weird. Because there's like a delay, like he's standing on it, and then like it's like a frame that like that wasn't spliced right or something. Because the way he falls is like not natural, and then when he comes up, there's like animated bubbles coming out of him, and then interesting. So I mean, now thinking about it, when you said that, when he's kind of being sarcastic throughout the film.
He
Maybe
really means it.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. That gives new context to the way he was acting around the studio.
It's method acting.
Yeah, I might have to watch it again with that in mind.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. It's from what I've read, it sounds like he was referred to Walt by a fellow staff member,
Mhm.
and they were like, well, having him on might not be such a bad idea.
Mm.
I know there's actual like sources that I could reference, but I don't have them with me at the moment. But basically it was just like, they had been fans of his work, because actually prior to coming to Disney's, he was most well known for producing these how-to shorts for MGM in the mid-30s, and one of them was called How to Sleep, and it actually won them an Oscar for Best Short Subject.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So, I mean, if there's anyone to credit for the goofy how-tos,
Yeah.
it's probably him. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, he was in tons of those.
Yeah. Well, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what? So he gets to the studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this part I thought was funny because he gets there, but then they tell him like that he needs an appointment, but then they kind of just let him in anyways.
Yeah.
And then his wife just like leaves.
She's going shopping.
She's like, yeah, it was my idea, but I'm gonna let you carry out the dirty work.
Yeah, no, I found that interesting because she tells him, right? She tells him like, just do it, right? And then she pretty much drops him off and just like, I forgot. Did she say she was just gonna go park the car, or she was just gonna leave?
I think she
was gonna go shopping.
Yeah. She's
Oh, is that?
shopping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought this whole time I thought she was just parking the car, and then because we never see her again.
She never came back.
Yeah. Yeah,
She's like, I'm leaving you in Walt's hands. Take care of him, feed him 3 days a week. Or 5 days. Sorry, I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, but then
man.
he pretty much like leaves him, and then he needs an appointment, but he really doesn't. And then I'm assuming this is like Walt's like assistant.
Oh, Humphrey.
Humphrey, yeah. That's also an original character. So.
Oh, it is.
It's not a real employee.
Oh, see, that's what I thought.
Okay.
That's
interesting.
I thought it was a real employee.
He was played by Buddy Pepper.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Poor guy had to run around the whole studio just trying to get Robert in to see Walt.
Yeah. Basically, the only big tidbit I have to share about him is that the year prior, he was involved in a lot of these like teen movies from MGM and stuff like that. And he had a 3 to 4 week long hand-holding romance, as he called it, with Judy Garland.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
Yeah. But they broke up, and I'm not sure if it was because of either party or if it was just so that like the studio needed them together for like publicity purposes or whatever.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we're in that system. So
yeah.
I wonder what that means. What is the like? What'd you call it? What kind of relationship? Or what kind of
hand holding? Like
yeah,
just
hand holding. Yeah,
so okay.
Like a wholesome one.
Okay, so maybe it was for publicity then.
Yeah. But he described it that way. So
oh, gotcha. Interesting. So it almost sounds like Disney was poaching MGM talent at this point.
Yeah, well, I would say that if there was any movie studio that Disney was most influenced by, it was probably MGM.
Okay.
Interesting. I can see that.
But I still give Disney the edge because, no employee was under the influence of methamphetamines. So
that's true.
Yes, very true.
So that's one instance where I'm like, yay, Walt! At least you were a decent human being in that regard.
Yeah. No, well, he's like the man that he's looking for, and then and I thought this part was weird because how he goes there initially to meet with him, right, to pitch him the story or whatever, but then he gets like in the story he's almost more interested in like the studio, like how things are made and stuff, because he gets distracted, and at one point, like he doesn't want to follow Walt's assistant. Just take him to him.
There is an explanation for that, not just for the narrative's sake, but also just because this studio that he's roaming around was only built for just over half a year. So it's like brand new state-of-the-art technology. So prior to 1939, the Disney short cartoons and feature films would have been produced in this very small studio in Silver Lake. But then with the profits from Snow White, Walt used those to furnish a brand new studio in Burbank. And I believe the last date of construction was January 5th, 1940. And the live action sequences for this film were filmed between October 9th and November 2nd. So they're like, look at our new stuff that we got because of this movie that you gave us an Academy Award for. So like, it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, I think they mentioned in the movie it's like 51 acres. Of studio, which is that's crazy. That's pretty cool.
And also just one more little thing. It really makes me happy that the first day of filming was the 9th of October, because that means this movie was started filming 59 years to the day before I was born.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I love that.
October birthdays are popular.
Yes, they are.
Hell yeah.
Joey's is October 5th.
Yeah.
Oh. I have another friend who's in October 2nd, so yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, when's your birthday again?
October 9th.
October 9th? Okay, so then we're both Libras, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's always cool when you have that synergy of like you love this thing, and then like all the like that was my birthday month when it came out. Like if my birthday was in May, I would be like, cool, like I came out the same month that Star Wars came out. But you know.
Yeah. Yeah. For Snow White, all I can point to for that one is that they had a story meeting on the 9th of October 1934 about the personalities, like the really early personalities of the Seven Dwarfs. But this packs a bigger punch, so I'll take this one instead. So. But yeah, I guess the only other thing before we get escorted by Humphrey is that, remember that sign that was Mickey Avenue and Dopey Drive?
Yeah.
That was built specifically for this movie.
Oh, wow.
So now
it's it's iconic. It's on merchandise at the Disney parks. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
So it's actually low-key Reluctant Dragon promo and merch.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, because when I saw it, like since I'm familiar with it already, I thought it was, oh look, like it's being shown in this movie, but I didn't know it was for this movie. So now it's the opposite. Now when I see it, like you said, I'm gonna think of the Reluctant Dragon.
Yeah, it was all over a lot of Disney 100 merch this year too. So that's awesome to know. Yeah.
Yes.
See, like
thanks, drag heads.
No, and something that I'm getting a lot, me personally, from like doing this podcast is now when I go to the parks, I see different things, like even just something as simple as a sign, and I'm connecting it to like fond memories and like the movies and stuff. So like now every time I see that sign now, it's not just gonna be like, oh cool, look, it's a sign. Now I'm gonna.
It almost feels like a little secret that only a handful of people know.
I always feel like going up to somebody like, did you know?
But I hope I'm not on the level of those TikTokers who are like, did you know that in this scene, this movie, it'd be like half the time it's inaccurate. So like, I don't want to be that guy.
If you look in the background.
You can very closely see a munchkin hanging himself in the background.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Yeah. Enough conspiracy theories. Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay, go for it.
So let's see. Humphrey is leading Benchley through the studio. And I think the first building that he goes into is the art class.
Yeah, it's the art class because he sees like a model come out, and then some guy talks to him and he goes, "Oh, you should check out the models on the like they're in there kind of thing." And then he goes in, and then I'm like, okay,
Look at the busty babes.
yeah, and I'm like, he just forgot he had a wife. Like 5 minutes going into the studio.
To be fair, I feel like she'd probably forget she had a husband a lot of times.
That's true.
You know what? Hey,
She's like that dummy.
Yeah, but then he goes in, and then much to his surprise, the artists are drawing an elephant, like a big elephant.
Yeah. First fun fact. Mm-hmm. Did you know that they named the elephant?
No.
No, what the name?
Her name is Mabel.
Mabel!
I love that.
and that wasn't in the movie, huh? Like they didn't... No?
Oh, I love that.
No, they never called her by name, but in one of the sources that I was reading up on, they did name drop her, and I was like, oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, Mabel.
And I'm assuming that was like art class in preparation for the animation of Dumbo, which I think was released the same year as The Reluctant Dragon.
Yes, and animation would have been concurrent with this movie during the shooting and everything. So
yeah, because you see the elephant have almost like circus attire, kind of like on its head.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd go that far out with an elephant in like genuine like anatomical drawing and stuff, but I appreciate the flourish. So
yeah. So that part was pretty cool because you get to see like right away. I was like, oh look, we're seeing literally behind the scenes of Dumbo, because even when they're drawing it, it looks like because the lady she mentions, there's a lady talking to him and she mentions oh, we get inspirations, but, we kind of take a little bit of liberties and stuff.
Oh, yeah, and then the elephant has Robert's face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, this is the first sequence that I really, really, really want to break down.
Okay, let's do it.
So, basically, in addition to Ken Anderson, Wolfgang Reitherman, and Eric Larson, who are three of the men seen drawing various caricatures of elephants, Retta Scott, who is one of Disney's first female animators, and Gio Fujikawa, who is Disney's Japanese publicity artist, appear in this scene. And I just want to give them some shout-outs because, like, women in Disney animation are kind of obscure until you get to Mary Blair. But there are more out there than you would think. So if I may share a little bit about both these ladies.
Please, yeah.
Yes. So Scott, her big break came through Bambi in the scene with the hunting dogs.
Okay.
Yeah. I should have made that more fun. I was like, you'll never guess what her first project was. These badass killing dogs.
No, and those dogs are like, usually in Disney movies, every time, like if right now if you told me, think of a Disney dog, I can think of like multiple ones, but none of them look evil.
Yeah.
And
but the most evil ones were drawn by a woman.
Yeah. These things look like usually it's like, no, don't hurt the dog, right? And in this one, I was like, no, I hope they fall off. I hope because it kind of looked like what's it called, like the evil queen, like when they're chasing her and then the rocks fall kind of down. Like I thought that was gonna happen to them, and I was like, yes.
My gosh. But her prior storyboard drawings for the sequence were so powerful that she was promoted to the position of animator. Fellow animator Don Lusk, he later recalled, quote, "She was assigned to animation, and the person who got to take her under his arm was me. They assigned her to me, which got her indirectly to Eric Larson, who was one of the key animators on Bambi. But no doubt about it, she knew how to draw," unquote.
Yeah. Like I said, those dogs look evil.
Yeah.
So.
And then as her influence grew, the male animators in her unit became almost motherly toward her, providing advice and assistance whenever needed. But she typically finished her work ahead of them anyway.
Yeah. Maybe they were like, I don't know, trying to, like coddle her, I guess?
Well, I mean, there was I'm sure there was a little bit of condescension, but also just kind of like you're new to this field. Like, some people, like, not all male Disney animators are sexist, but like, but so I can imagine that there were a few who were generally trying to like give her support.
Yeah.
And Lusk actually went on to say, quote, "She would draw animals in different positions, and I would just time it out for her. It would have to go to her for cleanup because it was all hers," unquote. And then Scott herself corroborated, quote, "My director, Eric Larson, gave me much encouragement and guidance. And as I only had been working on the dogs, Eric felt that I should clean them up myself where needed. I estimated that during that year, I had drawn over 56,000 dogs for Bambi," unquote.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah.
She could probably draw them in her sleep.
Yeah. She was a real one. And before I move on to Geo, I just have to say, since we're talking about the male animators, it's like, say what you want about them being conservative, about being narrow-minded, about them doing little with female characters, particularly during the Silver Age, which you guys will get to in a little while. But they had some studs working for them back in the day. I was like, God damn. When they had Ken Anderson, who's the first guy that you see before we move over to Geo, like, I literally paused the movie on a section where he had like his head turned towards the camera, and I was like, Jesus Christ!
Like, why isn't he the model?
I know. Like, my God, like his facial features are just sculpted. My God, kissed by angels.
Yeah, no, and then when you see Robert like looking in, he takes off his hat, and then I was like, I told Christine, I was like, what happened to guys wearing hats?
Yeah, it just like the style.
Yeah, it was also
40s too.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah, I was like, oh, so they're behind the camera. Okay, yeah, because like you said, some handsome looking dudes.
Yeah. My God. Oh,
I'm with you there.
Yeah. But then we see Geo, and they have her drawing this coolie elephant, and it's a moment.
It definitely is.
Yeah. But yeah, aside from devoting attention to that, I'm just going to go ahead and go into her brief biography.
Okay, good.
So she was born in Berkeley, California in 1908, and she naturally grew into an artist, having developed her skills as a kid and later studying at the Chouinard Art Institute, which is now the California Institute of the Arts, from 1933 to 1937. So basically, the Chouinard Art Institute is essentially the studio, or the institute, excuse me, that Disney pulled from when getting more like experienced animators and draftsmen, particularly for Snow White and Bambi. Those are especially because those were the first two big projects that they were working on, feature film wise. They really needed more people from that institute. Because I think they probably had like maybe 500 people beforehand that were like there from its like early inception up through like the early 30s. Not entirely sure, but the point of that is that her work was actually so well received even at that point that she even taught some classes in her mid-20s, by the way. So
wow, yeah.
So like she was up there. Then she came to the Disney studio in 1939 to work as a promotional artist, with her greatest claim to fame being the illustrated program for the original roadshow release of Fantasia. So you can actually look up the cover for that on Google or things like that. It's a very beautiful, light, airy cover. I don't know if she had anything to do with the illustrations inside, but it's really beautiful piece. Then in early 1941, she was sent to New York to work in Disney's merchandising department, illustrating numerous children's books. This was carried out roughly a year before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, and President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's subsequent issuing of Executive Order 9066, which authorized the nationwide incarceration of Japanese Americans until the end of the war.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But luckily, I have a quote about this. So she actually says, quote, "The war broke out after I moved here. My parents, my brother, and his wife were living in California. They were soon sent to an internment camp. I felt so guilty that I was free in New York and they were in camp. Walt Disney was wonderful to me. He came to the office where I was working during the war. He came in to see me especially. He said, 'How are you doing? I've been worried about you.' I said, 'I'm doing okay. If people ask me what nationality I am, I tell them the truth or give them big lies, like I'm half Chinese and half Japanese, or part Korean, part Chinese, and part Japanese.' He said, 'Why do you have to do that? For Christ's sakes, you're an American citizen. Next time anybody asks you that, just tell them it's none of their business. Besides, you're an American citizen.' He was so right. From that time on, I just told everybody I was an American citizen. But he was very concerned about the Japanese Americans that worked at the studio." Unquote.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
the kind of boss you want.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's so interesting how it kind of parallels a little bit of, today, but that makes me see Walt in a little bit of a different light, to see how, he was in touch with his employees in some sense, to have, to be worried. And how incredible to be, incredible at your work and then have something so large weighing on you, or that's incredible.
Yeah. So the one strike that I still have against him is with African Americans.
My
They're
God.
definitely
yeah. The fact that they didn't get anyone there until like the mid 50s, like, come on.
No, and then we'll get into it later, but you can kind of see, you can see the effect that absence of that has
absence of diversity.
Yeah.
In the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I even looked this up. I was like, they actually hired their first Latin American employee in 1929.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they worked as a background painter for several years. But just one specific type of person, we can't put them in there for some stupid reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, happier things. So going on in the 50s, she became a freelance illustrator and even wrote and illustrated her first 2 children's books, Babies and Baby Animals, in 1963. These were some of the earliest books to feature multiracial characters, a feature that would carry on into her later work.
Nice.
Her 46 self-written books have been translated into 17 languages and have been read in more than 22 countries. She passed away in New York on the 26th of November, 1998, at the age of 90.
Wow.
Nice. Well, that's a good long life, and then for having done that, I can see the inspiration, like for like things you see now, of like even something as subtle as like a biracial family. You can kind of go back to.
Maybe she opened the door.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm
sure that up to that point, it's like if there were like children's books devoted to white children and black children or whatever, then it would probably be like white literature is more flattering, and maybe the black literature maybe less so, depending on the author.
Yeah.
But for her, it was just a big sandbox to play around with. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, because it's very. I think it's very interesting that these are children's books, right? So it's like know how like kids, they don't like they're taught hate. Like they don't just initially, like we're not like, well, we just hate things. We are taught hate. So if we're taught differently when we're little, that's how we'll go on. So yeah, so I thought it was that's pretty cool. It's like like you're just teaching kids, hey, this is how things like ought to be, and this is how things could be. So
yeah. And speaking of which, I actually have a final quote from her. She's talking about her insight into writing for children. This was near the end of her life. She said, quote, "I am flattered when people ask me how I know so much about how children think and feel. Although I have never had children of my own, and cannot say I had a particularly marvelous childhood, perhaps I can say I am still like a child myself. Part of me, I guess, never grew up." Unquote.
Aww.
I mean, I feel like if you work at some point at Disney, you kind of get in touch with that side of yourself.
Yeah, no, I've seen so many. Every time we go to the parks and you see what would be considered like elderly people working at the parks, being like cast members, they're always like happy. At least the ones I've talked to, they have like this like youthfulness to them, this joy.
I'd say they're probably happier in California than in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Especially recently, yeah.
Also the weather, I'm sure, even though it's hot out here too, I'm sure they're not in the middle of a swamp.
Surrounded by gators.
Yeah. And that's funny because that's the only park I've been to, but now I'm like, please take me to California. Somebody, please.
Oh, wait.
You gotta come out. We're not super close to the parks, but you gotta come out here. We'll plan it all. We've been there enough times that we won't get lost and we know where to go what times.
Wonderful.
Oh, interesting. So you've never been to the like this park over here in California? You've only been to the one in Florida?
Only the one in Florida.
And we've never been to Disney World, so
yeah. And it's interesting because we were like, I think like last year we were kind of like, because we want to go to the different parks. So we've the only ones that we've been to is the one here and the one in Paris.
We're like, might as well go to Florida.
Yeah.
And then things went awry.
Now I'm like, you don't have to.
Yeah, just
that doesn't have to get off the bucket list.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a chance to visit the studios in Burbank one day.
Oh my
that
God.
Would be cool.
And then you're gonna pitch your own story.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna pitch my own story. Then it's gonna be like, we already made it. So.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I guess the only other thing I want to say before we move on, going off what you were saying about the things that children are taught through books and media and stuff, it's just so funny that a lot of my favorite Disney movies were made in this very conservative time period, but I never really took those values away from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Snow White, I've never been like, women belong in the house making pies. I don't believe in that kind of thing. Obviously, but just sort of like, I'm just the weirdo who's like, I know how to balance history with my values. So
yeah, that's important. I think people nowadays watch an animated Disney movie and take it personally, and they're like, why don't we live like this? And it's like, maybe because we're not mermaids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also just because like people complain about Cinderella all the time, and they're like, oh, she always needs to be dependent on a man and she can never do anything by herself. Oh, moral outrage amongst the housewives or something.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm just like, you know what? It's cool. I really like it. So
yeah, it doesn't have to be, you can just watch something or read something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, it just, you can just accept it for what it is, and you can disagree with it or agree with it, and you can still like it. And I feel like, nowadays it's like if I don't agree with it, that must mean that it's bad. And if I do, that it must mean it's good. There's a bunch of things that I'm sure that you like, but you don't agree with every aspect of it. That doesn't mean you don't like it.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, going off of this character that Gio is playing as well, it's like if someone else is watching that and they did not have the context that I'm sharing with you right now, that would be a strike against this movie.
Yeah.
But we now know that the situation was a lot more complicated and thankfully more positive than this movie made it out to be.
Right.
you see, and I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
So then that changed for me. Right, you just saying that right now, that changed it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have
Mission
had it
accomplished.
under the like controversy side, but now I have it, I would categorize it differently with the insight.
You know what? So now when I watch that scene, I'm gonna be like, hell yeah, but not like, but you know, not like
yeah, what she said.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, let's see. Actually, where were we?
Well,
oh yes, he crushed into a skeleton model.
Yeah. And when he did that, I don't know if this is like maybe it was just in my high school or something, that they told us that it was real. That the skeleton was like donated or something. You know? True.
Patrick Warbush from Toluca Lake, California was donated to our class.
It was his last wish.
Oh my god. Dang wish. I wish to be used for science. Oh man. Let's see. Yes, they're drawing elephants, and then Retta Scott has the best serve on Benchley.
Yeah.
The stupid oafish expression.
Yeah, and then she turns the page or whatever, and it shows them, and then because the whole time I'm thinking, does he like hate elephants? Because he's like being mean towards like the elephant. He's saying like, oh, you can never draw an elephant that is smart or can talk or something like that.
It reminded me of the
I
clowns
think he's just being a cocky asshole.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, like the clowns.
I'm above the elephant.
Yeah. Even though they can't remember, or no, even though they can't forget things.
They have a great memory.
Yeah. So let's see what happened next. He left the art class.
Yeah.
And then he got led astray by the sound effects department.
It was let's see. No, it was the sound effect. It was music.
Yeah, he finds
yes.
I think.
Yeah, because there's he hears like a rooster. No, it's like a chicken singing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this part.
Yeah.
Florence Gill. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Donald, obviously they're doing like a duet kind of thing.
Yeah. True art.
Yeah, it's epic. I love this part so much.
Yeah, and then when I was listening to it, I'm like, okay, so at this point, because we already went to the art and now we went to the music, I'm getting excited because I'm like, oh, so we're gonna watch like how everything is made from like animation, like the stop motion, all these things, like for like the different reels, and then so now we're into music, and then I'm listening to both of them like do a duet, and I'm thinking, oh, are we listening not like right now? We're listening to a song that we're gonna hear in a movie, that we're gonna review.
No, it's never popped up anywhere else.
No.
Oh, unfortunate.
I mean, there was a short in 1936 called Mickey's Grand Opera, where Florence and Clarence had a duet as Clara Cluck and Donald, but they were singing a different piece. So,
oh,
I almost want to make this my alarm.
Yeah.
Florence Gill is my alarm.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, but he goes in and he like kind of walks, like you'll see he walks in on everything, but yeah, they're like just finishing up their song, and then I found this interesting. Like I guess apparently it's easy. I haven't tried it, but it's easy to make the Donald noise.
I did not try it myself.
I didn't try it.
I fail miserably.
Well, he made it sound. I don't know. He just.
Well, because that was actually Clarence.
Yeah. No.
Because they used one of his takes. So.
Yeah. But when he's explaining to him, he's like, "Oh, there's nothing to it." And I'm like, "Well, you're a professional." Yeah.
I mean, Clarence doesn't even have to pull his cheek. He just like
Like at this
grinds it up into a weird shape or something. I don't know. He's a wonder for sure. And then they're like, he's eventually is like, hey, maybe do a voice for a dragon, and he tries to like fail at imitating a dragon, and then Humphrey catches him being stupid.
Yeah, because he's like on the floor, and as soon as I saw this, I remembered Smaug from the
Lord of the Rings.
From Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit movies. I don't know if you've seen him, but
I'm afraid I haven't.
No, but so Benedict Cumberbatch plays Smaug, the dragon, and he sounds like what I think a dragon would sound like, and it's interesting because Benchley is, kind of acting out what a dragon, like how he moves in order to make the sound, and in that movie, in the Hobbit movies, when Benedict was getting into like the voice, he started doing that too, like moving around like a dragon, and then they actually used his motion to like mimic to how to move the dragon in the film. So I found right away, I saw, okay, well, when we're trying to come up with like how a thing sounds, I guess it's like a natural thing to just get in, like get into it, like move how this thing would move. But when he started talking, I'm like, that's not how a dragon sounds. I don't think that's how a dragon would sound.
He'd be covered in scales, Ducky.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
okay. So then they get moved to the sound effects department.
After that, yes.
Okay. And then we find this lady who is also a fictional character named Doris.
Doris, yeah. Okay. I see. Again, I'm just thinking they're all real. But
yeah, if they are on screen for more than 5 minutes, they are an actor.
Okay.
I'm sorry to say, but she teaches him about this funky contraption that makes you sound like a train. And of course, we don't yet know why she's trying to sound like a train. So she's just like this possessed lady being like, all aboard.
All aboard, clear the track, here I go.
Well, does that come natural, or is that something you picked up in high school?
Good God, what witchcraft are you using? And then she's like, "Oh, don't worry, just put it on your near your vocal cords and talk into it."
She's like, I don't want to sound like that.
Yeah. And actually, I don't even know if she is actually like putting her voice to to that machine. I think those also might have been pre-recorded by a different person. Because they sound just like the voice we hear in Dumbo, and Francis Gifford is not credited in that. So
right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think maybe they were just showing like how, like it wasn't like an in action actually happening.
Yeah.
She's like, well, this is how we get the sound. But you guys recognize this sound. So then, I think they just put it in afterwards.
Yeah. Friends, Romans, countrymen. Woo woo. Love it.
Yeah. No, this whole segment was probably my favorite part. The sound effects.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This whole, like I sometimes just do sound effects just when I'm like playing with my puppy, or just because I'm into like, like comics and movies and like Marvel, Star Wars and stuff and video games. So every time I hear like a punch sound or like a crackling sound or something, I'm always conscious of like I'm seeing it, but I know that the sound is being made like different, like I'm not watching it and it's making that sound. So then when we got to this scene, I was like, oh yes, we're gonna like things that you wouldn't expect make that sound, making that sound, and then us actually seeing it, like in real time.
Yeah. And turns out that they're using this contraption for a recording session for a random Casey Jr. sequence for Dumbo.
Yeah, he's like a dramatic one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like
I'm surprised that they would come up with this much original material for a movie that turned out not to be very successful.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because that was like a whole thing. You know, like it goes in, like at one point, we're seeing it on a screen that they're looking at, but then we're seeing that actual animation. And I like that when there's a sound effect that happens, it cuts back to the person making it.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. That was my favorite.
It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite sound?
My favorite sound was probably the I think it's like the crash, like when Casey Jr. falls apart, because
and when they have all those like
random like
metal things like falling down to the ground, like
Yeah,
they're piled up on top of each other and then they collapse.
yeah, because I know it's like off topic, but like I take pictures and some like if I do photography, and sometimes I'm outside, and sometimes the lighting isn't like ideal. You have to catch it when you can because the sun moves and shadows and stuff. So everything else was like deliberate, like controlled, but that one sound, the guy just dropped the things, and it's like let's just, if we can get it, let's get it, and then if hopefully it comes out right. So it was that like uncertainty of, well, it sounds like things are falling down because they are, and it's just random, and that's how it would sound like. Yeah, so that was my personal favorite sound effect.
I think my favorite was the guy running his face through the water.
He was just
making the bubble sounds.
Yeah, it's funny because that part was really funny too, because when he comes up for air, he's like literally gasping.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, actually, that guy is his name is Jimmy McDonald, and he would go on to be the second voice of Mickey Mouse.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So yeah, he took over for Walt because of his lungs.
Oh, well, yeah.
Smoking.
Yeah.
Nice. And what was your favorite, Ben?
I think the same, the crash at the end, because it kind of left me with like, did they animate that before or after they got the sound?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just thought they animated and then they just put the sound, but maybe according to what the sounds, like what they got from the sound, right? That's how they animated the... Oh, yeah. I wonder, like, I don't think they went into that. I think they made the animation
Well,
first,
my whole thing is, like, the scene was fully animated, but it wasn't in color, obviously. But, I don't... That's a good question. I don't know if they would... If it would be, like, they'd actually be doing it to, like, pencil animation, or if it would be, like, the final print that they would be recording to.
Right.
Because
that's a good idea.
Yes, yeah. The way it was presented is that they had the animation done, and then they, but then that would be kind of playing catch up. Like, oh, we gotta nail it. But either way, I just like that we get to see how it was made and stuff.
Yeah, it was cool to
watch.
watch.
Of course. Yeah, and then he has to eventually has to be an asshole and be like, wouldn't it be great just to wreck a real train?
Yeah.
As he's like leaving too, kind of like a.
He's like, you guys are crazy. You're just wreck an actual train.
Kind of like he's saying, like, if he knows better as he's like taking off.
Yeah, that's just the weird thing that makes me kind of annoyed. It's like he doesn't know anything, and yet he acts like he knows everything.
Right.
Yeah, and he's like smug about it, and then they keep giving him like I guess like trinkets or like things to take that represent him being there. Like like they gave him like there's like the drawing of him as the elephant, right? So like in like every scene he goes in, every room, there was
like a little memento.
Yeah, like a little. There we go, like a little memento.
Like,
yeah.
Like, whatever. This is cool, I guess.
Now.
I'm thinking, imagine if we were able to go there and we got things like that.
I would be crying.
Yeah.
You sculpted a mold of my face?
Thank you so much.
Imagine.
Oh my god.
I'm like, you got the pimple and everything.
Oh man. But yeah, I think this is why I kind of want to rewatch it now, knowing that he wasn't too happy with the production, like in real life, because now it seems almost like a just realistic.
Like,
Yeah.
like I want to know if that was improv.
Yeah, I don't know if he had anything to do with the script or not.
Yeah, I want to. For all we know, that could have just been him as leaving on his last day or something.
Like the line may have been written in advance, but the feeling was very real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he's still avoiding. At this point, he's leaving the room, but he's still avoiding the assistant
Humphrey. Yeah.
Humphrey. Yeah, he keeps looking for him and being like I missed the part where he went from just being distracted to he's actively avoiding him.
Yeah. And it sounds like he had like a real, like, what's the word for it? It's like he had a short span of patience with him.
Yeah.
It was just like he, for all we know, he was just with him for like a minute, and he was just spouting off all this miscellaneous information about the studio. But he's like, this kid's already too much of a pill to swallow. I got to get away.
I don't know, you would think you would be interested if you're there.
Yeah.
You know, but like that would be like the best studio tour guide.
Yeah. They should have hired him to work at Disneyland for like the canal boat ride.
Oh yeah.
So imagine
Robert would be jumping off the boat.
Oh my gosh. These blades of grass were meticulously put onto the base by fellow Imagineers. And we'd be like, great. We're going around these tiny houses. But yeah, and then he runs into the camera department. And everything turns all Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, that was like it was for me. It was very interesting because I saw the poster, right, and the poster has color, and then I saw the little snippet, like the little sneak peek. So you know, I went into it thinking, oh, like it's gonna be an animated color animated movie. And then for whatever reason, my brain didn't like register that it was in black and white, because as soon as the color came on, I was like, wait, was it in black and white the whole time?
What?
Yeah. It was like a wait. Oh, we were in black and white. I don't know why my brain didn't register.
And I immediately was like, whoa.
Girl, hold up.
Yeah. I was like, I think we were watching it wrong. I was colorblind the first half of the film.
Yeah, but it is like a Willy Wonka, because he's essentially in a factory, like how things are made, and then things come. You know. Yeah, but this part was like, I was so thrown off by it, like in a good way. I was like surprised.
I love that he went to check his undershirt and everything to see if everything turned a color.
No. See, and that's when it hit me, because when he checked his shirt, I was like, why is he checking his shirt?
I thought it was Clark Kent.
Yeah. I think I mentioned something about like Clark Kent, and then Christina says like, oh, well, he's looking at it because it's in color now. And then I was like, oh, it's in color. Yeah, so I was like, what?
Glorious Technicolor.
Yeah. And then I was like, why is he? I was so confused. I was like, why is he just randomly checking his shirt? You know, so.
Because he just had to make sure he didn't age. And close the door.
But now he's in this room of Technicolor.
And it has the multiplane camera.
Yeah.
That famous machine.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool when he looks through the lens, and then you see like the forest. It's like an autumn forest.
For Bambi, yeah.
For Bambi, right? Yeah. And then it's like it's like a 3D effect going in to the forest.
I thought this was really cool because I guess I never thought too much about like, I wonder how this actually just becomes a film. I was just like, well, they paint it and then that's that.
And then we're done.
It's done. But yeah, it was super cool to see that. Like, I had no idea that they, had this kind of technology. I would love to see that in person. That'd be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have I think there are 3 of those cameras in existence left. One of them is actually at the Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris.
Oh, why didn't we see that,
I
Joey?
was gonna say, oh, damn it. I was like, if we would have known.
You guys had one job!
Oh, man. We might
man.
have to go back.
Yeah. It's an excuse for us to go back then.
Quick, get the passports! But really, if he actually witnessed the camera in action, he'd probably have to stay in that department for like several days, depending on the scene.
Yeah.
And maybe even wait 10 to 15 minutes at a time for the cameramen to ensure that the rig was all good.
Yeah. For what he saw was essentially like a finished.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, like, because he looked through it and then like how we were seeing it, it was too clear. So he wouldn't have been seeing that, no.
Yeah. And actually, I really don't think that shot is in Bambi.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so, because there's only 2 shots that I can think of that are like that, and it's the opening and the ending when it's kind of cutting through the forest, and none of them look like that. They're all
I love that they were just showing off like OG content.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like unseen things, right? Like things that didn't make it onto the film.
Yeah. Also, I hate to phrase the question like this, but why is Doris here too? The fact that she's like, oh, I'm a sound lady, but also I run part of the camera department.
They
like
paid
I'm
her for
upgrading
the
all
full
these. Oh, but no, she did say there was a line where she was like, oh, I was just what did she say? It was like looking after for the actual train whistle who's going to the dentist or something.
Oh, that's right.
So she's made up an excuse essentially to be there.
Yeah. And then they show him the standard like 1 level camera.
Yeah.
For their like short cartoons and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have all these cells of Donald Duck, and they just explain the process as straightforwardly as they can. But he's still such an egghead, so they actually have to like break the 4th wall and have Donald explain everything to him.
Yeah, because he was like, I like when he's like, wait just a minute, or whatever he tells him.
Just a minute, big boy. Give me time. Give me time.
Because he's like, why isn't he moving? and that was kind of like
Sir, the cells are talking to me.
No, and that was kind of like a meta thing because he's like, why isn't he moving? And then Donald goes, give me just a minute. And then that's like, well, it doesn't. It takes time for you to get that effect. Yeah. So then that part was pretty cool too, because it reminded. Well, like for me, it connected it with like the bubbles in the beginning, the little animated bubbles that were in live action, but they're animated. So now you got Donald talking to him, like you said, breaking the 4th wall. So then I'm just like, okay, so then anything goes. You know, there's not like
anything goes in Disneyland. So.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Yeah. So.
And he's like a farmer or something, right? Donald's like a...
Yeah, and that's actually for a legit short. I think there was one called Old MacDonald Duck that came out the same year as The Reluctant Dragon.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
See, I want to see that.
Yeah. I think it involves him trying to milk a cow and he's failing.
Of course.
Like always. And then a fly gets involved. So...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so cute shenanigans.
Hey, look out!
Don't be afraid. I'm only the train whistle.